guys, welcome back. It's Josh with the Financial Advisor Car Guy. This week I am actually back in town. I was on vacation last week for part of the week, and one of my stops is what we're going to talk about today. Middle of the week last week, my wife had, actually last birthday of mine, had given me a gift certificate to the Pedersen Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. And we'd been planning to make a trip down there. We finally made that happen. And so today what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a slideshow of many of the cars that we saw. Now, before we get into that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the museum just generically. It's a huge collection of automotive history. There's new cars, old cars, classic cars, vintage cars, supercars, hypercars, you name it, they're there. Now, it's a huge collection that is privately owned by the museum, but also has many different privately owned vehicles that are on loan simply for display. So right now there are two, what I would call spectacles, if you will, but two exhibits that are quite fascinating. One is Tesla, and it shows the history of Tesla. Like I said, I'll talk about and show you a couple of these cars, but there was a, what would it be, like a concept car, I suppose, of the Tesla Model S. And, you know, as I'm talking about this, I'm not sure that I got a picture of that car. I'll do what I can to find it. But then there's other things in there too. That we saw a live Cybertruck, complete, done, ready to go, drivable Cybertruck. We saw the new Tesla Roadster, which has not yet been released, but this is their concept car, but it runs and drives. Just fascinating Tesla experience there. The other exhibit was what we call, or what they called, We Are Porsche. And it was about Porsche's history. It was some very early cars all the way up to, you know, the 918 Spider supercar. They had one of those there. They had Steve McQueen's Porsches. They had an actual race car that was raced by Patrick Dempsey. Again, I'm going to show you guys all this stuff, but it was very cool. Those were two of the most fascinating exhibits I've probably ever seen in any sort of automotive collection. Beyond that, there's just a lot of movie cars, a lot of other historical significant cars, as well as what they call their vault. Now, the vault wasn't included in the museum purchase price. So to visit the museum, you pay like 20 bucks, and it's a 3-floor museum. And I'll start by showing you pictures of the exterior. It's a beautiful building in downtown Los Angeles. Just very cool experience. But if you want to see all the cars that they don't keep on display, you have to pay a premium to get into what they call the vault. And the vault is a revolving collection of vehicles that I want to say these cars are owned primarily by the museum themselves, but they have different exhibits down there. They had a Ferrari room, which was fascinating. They had, you know, again, lots of vintage, old classic vehicles. Just a really cool collection of things. Again, more movie cars and that kind of stuff. They had one wing of the basement, if you will, the vault, that was all race cars. So they had tons of Formula One cars. They had some NASCAR. They had, you know, drag strip. I don't know what you call them, but I'll show you pictures. Just really cool collection of race cars. And then they had some motorcycles. I didn't spend much time looking at those, but I will throw in a couple of pictures of the motorcycles as well. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Like I said, let's start with the exterior photos. Now, as you can see, this is the front entrance, but what we're looking at is a bunch of basically twisted metal that wraps a red aluminum building. It's incredibly eye-catching, and when the sun hits it, it is very, very cool. As we wandered inside, this Porsche was the first thing we saw in the parking lot. We then saw a Tesla Semi, and we walked into the Porsche collection where they had this life-size Matchbox car, followed up by Ken Block's Hoonigan Pikes Peak car. There were tons of Porsche race cars. Then we got to see Tim Schmee, who's an influencer. Got to see his $4 million, I don't even know what it is. It's some crazy car. I will overlay the name here, but it's nuts. More Porsches as we wander through the main lobby. As we go to the first floor, this is the Bugatti that they have. It's a 1939. Beautiful car. We moved right into the movie cars where you're going to see Here's Bumblebee from the original Transformers. This is the actual car from the movie, so Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox filmed in it. This is the car that Bumblebee transforms into. Lots of concept parts. You'll see here on the next image, the wheels are just hubcaps that are over steel wheels, but in the movie you can't tell. This is the original Batmobile from Michael Keaton. Beautiful car. It had like 8 miles on it just from filming. Here's Christine, if you guys remember that movie where the car is evil. Pretty cool. Next, we move into the Thelma and Louise Thunderbird. This has obviously not been driven off a cliff, but it is the same car. Here is the 2009 BMW i8 concept car. This was actually driven by Tom Cruise. It is a running and driving car he used in one of the Mission Impossible movies. Here is an Alfa Romeo, very cool car. Here's a Ferrari that I'd never seen before. Golly, let's see, I'm losing track of some of these, but if you guys pause, you'll be able to zoom in and see the placards. This is the next floor where we got to start viewing a lot of the Porsches that they had on display. All years, all makes, race cars, street cars. Some of these aren't going to be formatted correctly because I held my phone the wrong direction for taking the pictures. But like I said, you guys can zoom in and see what you'd like. A lot of these cars do have vintage racing history. A lot of them have modern day racing history. Didn't necessarily go into the wins and losses, but these are all cars that have documented racing lineage. So very cool. Some are obviously more modern day, like this one here. This one's Patrick Dempsey's race car. Here's a little snippet on Patrick Dempsey that they had posted in the museum. And here's Steve McQueen's Porsche 911 Turbo. Very cool car. Several other, historical cars. Here's a 918. This is basically their supercar. As we wandered around, they had lots of different displays again. Here's one on the wall. Here's one that had tracks, and this was actually a race car by a mother and daughter team that was exceptionally cool. Here's an old Le Mans race car. This was an original Panamera. This was a concept car that was never put into production, but was built in 1967. There you go, 911S Custom. This car was somebody's personal dream, that he basically turned a 911 into a Boxster. Here's what the Boxster ended up looking like in the first generation. More race cars. We moved into the movie cars again. Here's Eleanor from Gone in 60 Seconds. This has always been a personal dream car of mine, so that was exceptionally fun to see. I tried to get as many different angles as I could. Parked next to it was the Mystery Machine from, guess what, Scooby-Doo, into the, golly, these suck because they got all cut off. Here's the DeLorean from Back to the Future. Again, sorry for the sucky angles on some of these photos. But yeah, I tried to capture as much of this as I can. Here's Kit from Knight Rider. Golly, you can only see part of it. Herbie, this was actually driven by Lindsay Lohan. Then we came into what I would call the jewel room. This was all the high-end, multi-million, just expensive one-off cars or very, very rare. This is an extremely rare Cadillac. Again, you can zoom in on the placard to read it. Some of these, again, off the top of my head, I can't recall what they are because so many of them were so rare, not cars you'd ever see. This Bugatti was an exceptional car. It was built for some sheik in like Abu Dhabi before Abu Dhabi was a thing. Just an incredible history. This is a property of the Pedersen Automotive Museum, but it's worth a huge fortune. There you go. So there's the placard on that one. This next is a Rolls Royce. It's called a round door, and you'll see why here in just a moment. Just incredibly cool. There's the driver's side door, and it's a circle. It's completely round. It's got round windows, and then it's got this beautiful sloping back. It makes me think of like the Batmobile, but it is a Phantom, what they call the aerodynamic coupe. Here's a Ford GT40. Again, very true racing lineage on this car. It's a Mark III. Very, very expensive, very cool, rare car. You don't get to see these every day. So that was a highlight for me. Here's an old Ferrari. Let's see. It looks like it's a 52. And I think I get a picture of the interior. And again, mostly original. Some of these cars have been restored, but some of them have not. Again, that would be what I would call the crown room, the jewel room. We moved out into the hallway where they had a bunch of motorcycles set up. And here's some of the displays. You know, they had street bikes, classic cruisers, cafe racers. Then we moved into the Corvette racing lineage room, which had all these cars, and above them you can sort of see what they were raced for. And then they had a moving wall behind that was kind of an interactive film, which we didn't stick around to watch. We had a lot to see. So very cool, each generation, C1 through C7. Then we moved down a floor to the Tesla floor, and here's the Cybertruck. As you can see, this is it in its finished production stage. Behind the truck there, you can see a sledgehammer and a steel ball. Those are the actual pieces that Elon used in his demonstration, which shattered the window. This is the Tesla Roadster in its original form. This was a display of a replica of the Roadster that he sent up into space, and here is an actual version of the Roadster Mark I, the original Roadster. Then we're going to get into a bunch of random pictures. This is down in the vault. Now, I can't tell you what each and every one of these cars are. There were just far too many, and we were just moving through because there were quite a bit of people at this point. So I was just capturing pictures as best as I could. So I might silence myself and just allow you guys to kind of enjoy these pictures. But first we moved into the Ferrari room, and you can see that they had a vintage and then a modern day Ferrari race car. Here's a Dino. This one is a 125S, very cool original Ferrari. This one here, I couldn't recall what it's called. Same with that one. This is some sort of Monza race car, and then we moved into the 512 BBI. Here's a Ferrari F40. Next is a Ferrari Enzo, which is just a fascinating supercar in and of itself. Not common to see those. And then the pinnacle of the room is going to be this next one here, La Ferrari. And what's funny is I was Googling and researching what this car costs online, and I found one on eBay that the guy was boasting it's a one of one in the world, a triple black car, which is an absolute lie because here's a photograph of another one. This Laraki car was about a $3.5 million supercar, one-off car. This blue car here is built by, I can never pronounce it right, Pininfarina something or other. They're the ones that do a lot of the body designs on Ferraris and Lambos and those supercar exotic cars. Here's a split window Vet. What we just saw was a Cobra. Here's a more modern day GT40 or 4GT as they call it. Here's a Bugatti, super fun car. That was a really cool one. Here's a 250 GTO Ferrari. Now this car is obviously beat up and in need of attention. We'll talk about that later. Here is a gold DeLorean. This is one of three. It is 24 karat gold plated. One of three in the world, and it is pristine. Very low miles. Very cool car. Here we get into just a bunch of hot rods, you know, cruisers, all sorts of things. Again, I was just snapping pictures at this point. I did not get an opportunity to read all these placards, so I'm not even sure what all of them are. But here's a Mustang GT350. This one is one of 50. It's a golden anniversary Mustang from 1966. GTO, Hemi Cuda. What else? More hot rods, roadsters, speedsters, race cars. You name it. We got to see it in this room. A lot of these are custom builds. Obviously, you can see the flames and the colors on these things were not original, but just really cool deal. This clear Citroen was very neat. They had some lowriders. These are all hydraulic out. My daughter was digging these. She thought they were just the coolest. Here's a motorcycle from Batman. Here's the original Batmobile from the TV series. This is Tony Stark's hot rod in the first Iron Man. That was an awesome car. This was a car that was built on, I want to say, it's an XNR concept car. It was built on a TV show. It was very cool. Here's a concept Honda. They had the original Grease Lightning. This was used in the movie. It is the original car in perfect condition. It's obviously been a little bit upgraded, you know, from original, but like that grease sticker obviously wouldn't have been on it during filming. It says John Travolta on the driver door there. Obviously that wouldn't have been the case. Here are some classic limos. This is an Imperial, very cool car. I loved that the passengers in the back get their own windshield. This car was used for the Pope. This T0 car is a very early E-car, electric car EV. more race cars, more race cars, more race cars. So the next several slides you see here are going to be just different race cars as we're walking through the racing section. But again, all these cars have documented racing history. So many of these have been, restored or look like they did when they were new. Yeah, just fascinating history. A lot of these Indy cars, again, maybe they didn't take first, but they all have a racing history. And it goes to show the lineage and just how these cars have changed over time. Some are lower than others, some are longer than others, some are skinnier, some are wider, and they all just kind of do their own thing, different aero, some with active aero. This is just a couple of examples of what the front wings would look like versus the back wings. Yeah, this was a pretty neat room. And then we moved into a big block Dodge race car. This is a Daytona. Fantastic car. You could spot this thing a mile away with this big orange wing. But again, race car, full cage. Here are some NASCARs as we move down the line here. Original sponsors are still here. Again, racing lineage, racing history. So it was a pretty fun room to walk through. It was actually Kyle Busch's car. Again, more styles of different race cars. We spent some time here. This car was neat. It was custom painted, hand drawn. It was a white Camaro that was Sharpied. This is, I don't know what this is. This is some futuristic take, completely custom, one of one, all exposed metal, just this wild car. And again, these pictures suck because, again, I didn't format them correctly. That's probably the best picture you're going to see. Here is a Chrysler concept car. It kind of reminds me of, what is it, the Chrysler Crossfire or whatever. Here's a bunch of Rolls Royce. There were several in the collection, all different years, all different makes. This is a Delahaye. This was one of the coolest cars in the collection as far as I'm concerned. Just the lines are insane. Very rare car, very, very rare car. But just check that out. That is amazing. This is an interesting three-wheel European car. More classic Rolls Royce. Here's a buggy carriage. This one was neat. You can't really tell, but in the license plate it said horseless carriage. Here's Ken Block's Hoonigan Pikes Peak car again. My daughter was fascinated by that, so we went to revisit. So hopefully you guys thought that was pretty cool. My wife, my kids, and I, we had a blast. It was fantastic seeing some of these cars. A lot of these were things that we'd seen in movies or on TV, or, again, there's going to be stuff that you see at lots of different car shows. But just this collection all in one place, it was a really cool experience to wander through. Again, this was 3 floors with the sub-basement. That's the vault. They told us there's roughly 275 cars in the vault, and then the rest of the museum is probably about 250 or 275 again. So it was over 500 cars we got to view, and just a very cool experience. They also had in there a cafe, and it was called the... oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank, but it was the Volkswagen buggies, the Manx, golly, I'm drawing a blank on it, but the Manx buggy cars. Anyway, they called the cafe that, and just very cool, great menu. It was actually some of the best food we had in Los Angeles. So if you guys are ever down there, I would definitely stop. I'd go there again. You can see the whole museum, but if you don't want to pay admittance to the museum itself, yeah, you can eat in the restaurant, and you can see whatever the display is there in the lobby. Again, for this particular purpose, it was Porsche. Not all the Porsches were there. It was a small spectacle of those, but yeah, just very, very cool. It was an awesome museum. We would absolutely go back. Highly recommended. If and when you're in LA, it's a must do. So hopefully that's helpful to you guys. What comments do you have, or what questions might you have about the museum? Was there something that I told you that we saw that we didn't really go into too much coverage on that you'd like to learn more about? I just kind of very high level, basically told you what I saw. I didn't get into it much. but the collection was pretty extensive, and there's tons of stuff I didn't even post pictures of here. So hopefully you take something away. But like always, like, subscribe, comment down below, ring that notification bell. Most importantly, remember, may every investment you make be a good one. Till next time.